Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's a great honor for me to welcome you to the Stakeholders Workshop on Oligopoly Analysis and Regulation. I'd like to thank all of you for accepting our invitation to be here today and to join us in this discussion that I think is very important for our sector. My special gratitude goes to Mark Fuhrer and his team for hosting the workshop in this beautiful seat of Bern and to give us a room with a view that right now we don't have, but it's a great view. And I would like also to extend my gratitude to Jorge and Racha, the chairs of the Market Economic Analysis Expert Working Group and the organizers of this workshop. I also would like to thank the speakers and participants for joining us today and for taking time to discuss this important issue. As you see, we have a quite impressive panel of speakers that today will give us their views on these different issues, and I'm sure that we have a very diverse opinion. Oligopoly analysis is a pillar of the berec work program for 2015. In particular, the impact of oligopolies on competition, investment, innovation, and of course on end users' needs. The European electronic communication industry has witnessed a significant transformation over the last years and has evolved from a monopolistic to an oligopolistic structure. Telecom markets are oligopolistic in nature due to their characteristics, as we all know. There are economies of scale, economies of scope, high fixed and sunk costs. There are, many issues related to patents, resources ownership, and all these issues can raise important entry barriers. On the other side, there are new sources of disruptive competition pressure, including, of course, the CAPs, the contents and applications providers, which changed the competitive landscape in these markets. Several European Union countries have witnessed an increased consolidation in the sector, with many cases of mergers and acquisitions. The trend of consolidation of the sector has been strengthened in the connected continent and also by the recent Commission decisions on mergers and acquisitions. The consolidation of the sector is particularly evident in the mobile market, with the examples of Austria, Ireland, and Germany. Some of these cases will be presented today, which lead to a reduction of the number of players. But there are also some examples of market players providing services in the fixed market that were acquired by mobile operators. We have examples of Vodafone in Spain and Germany, where Vodafone acquired cable operators. And traditional electronic communication operators are acquiring rights to offer contents in order to act as an integrated operator, offering bundles and convergent services based on their own infrastructures. Well, I can tell you that, of course, we'll see several different impacts of these mergers and acquisitions. In my country, in Portugal, we also observed the merger of a cable operator with the third mobile operator. And right now, we have three integrated platforms competing against each other. And I can see that the first impact of this merger was a fierce price competition that was essentially triggered by Vodafone. Vodafone had to build its customer base on fixed lines, and so they started a quite aggressive pricing strategy. So the first impact of this merger was, in fact, on one side, price competition, intensive price competition. On the other side, a decision from Vodafone to invest on the fiber network. But also the regulatory pressure pushed the Vodafone and the Portugal Telecom to do a fiber sharing agreement. And doing to this, we are expanding our already excellent coverage of fiber to the home. But what is important here is that in BEREC, we want to follow the movements in the markets, and we have been quite attentive in the last few months, and our expert working group has been developing some analysis on these issues. And the objective of this workshop is precisely to discuss these trends and raise questions. And if we can find some answers, it would be great, about the impact of oligopolies in terms of the future of the regulation and on market analysis and the need for remedies. Regarding this, BEREC is also developing a report on oligopoly analysis that will be subject to public consultation and which we expect to have a final version in the end of the year. A report on market developments post-merger could also be foreseen. And for this essential discussion, we need the help of someone that has an independent view on this sector. And so we have the pleasure of having today Professor Bruno Julien as a moderator of our workshop. Bruno was generous enough to accept this invitation 3 days before the workshop, and to do this last-minute task of substituting Professor Patrick Ray that was initially announced. Patrick had a ski accident, and he was not able to join us today. And unfortunately, but somehow we are in very good hands, because we have Bruno. Bruno is also a colleague of Patrick, and he was generous enough to accept our invitation. Of course, we all wish Patrick a fast recovery, and we hope to see him quite soon. So let me tell you a few words about Bruno Julien. He's currently scientific director of the Toulouse School of Economics. As you know, Toulouse School of Economics has been a very important and crucial center for research in areas related to regulation, and more recently with the Nobel Prize that was attributed to Jean Tirole. I think the regulation came on the headlines of all newspapers. Bruno is also the senior researcher at CNRS and a senior member of the Institut d'économie industrielle. Bruno Julien graduated from École Polytechnique and holds a PhD in economics from Harvard University. I don't need to tell you how important Bruno Julien has been in the academic world. He's a very well-known researcher, and his scientific works have been published in the top journals in the world. So it's a privilege for us to have the chance of listening to Bruno, who also has a very deep knowledge of this sector. He has also been advising firms and decision makers on regulatory and competition policy issues for more than 20 years, including the telecommunications sector. His interests cover industrial organization, in particular in the domain of network economics, ICT and competition policy, as well as regulation, insurance and contract theory. And he is very well known as well from his contributions to two-sided market studies. So I can just tell you that we are in very good hands, and I do wish you, all of you, a very pleasant and constructive dialogue. I hope that you ask hard questions so we can have some interesting answers. And I will now give the floor to Bruno. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, so I don't need to introduce myself. Thank you. It was very nice. Welcome to this berec session, workshop on oligopoly analysis. So the objective of the day is to discuss implication of oligopolistic market structure for regulation in the light of the current trends that the telecom industry has been undertaken. I would not say that there are new things happening, because there are always new things happening in the telecom industry. We've been used to that for the last 30 years now. So it's just another round of innovations coming on, and there will be more to come. Now, I will try to be brief, because I want to give voice to the panel and also to the floor, because I understand that there are many stakeholders present in the room, and we would like them to intervene as well as a panelist. Okay, so what I want to do is just to make a short introduction, and I'm an academic, so I do what academics will do, so we should go back to the basics and trying to, I will not talk about telecommunication for this introduction, but about competition, oligopolistic market structure, and try to make a few points which I guess are probably obvious to many of you, but are always good to remind when you start to discuss issues of regulation of oligopolies in general. So, first, oligopoly are situations where a few firms compete on the market, so that each firm must account for the actions of the or reactions of the other firms when it decides on its course of actions. So this is, in terms of research, the domain of game theory that is been promoted by Jean Tirole, and that we've been using in Toulouse for long. The first remark is that when we analyze, or economists analyze oligopoly from a competition policy perspective, economists are not concerned about oligopoly per se. They are concerned about market power. Now, oligopolistic market are market where several firms have some market power. And the level of market powers may vary a lot across oligopolies. It depends on many factors. And so, of course, concentration matters, but demand elasticity matters, product differentiation matters, the dynamic of innovation matters, a lot of elements. To give you a basic example from economics, if we take a duopoly, two firms on the market, economist has a whole range of models. So the most competitive model would be what we call Bertrand competition with homogeneous goods, which will give you price equal marginal cost. But then we have the Cournot model, which has some level of market power. We have the product differentiation model, or the Hotelling model, that gives you some level of market power. And then we have collusion, where we get full market power and monopoly outcomes. So the same market structure, duopoly, can give you many different outcomes, and this has to be kept in mind. This implies that any market analysis must account for many factors, and actually this is well known in the practice of merger control, and also well known in the practice of market analysis by regulators. So that this is a difficult exercise. Now, the concern with market power is that it induces excessive pricing and restrictions of trade. So that's what we call micro 101 insight. Now, any competitive assessment will then start with the so-called static analysis of oligopoly. So in the static analysis of oligopoly, an increase in concentration leads to higher consumer price. So increased concentration would be viewed as inducing welfare loss, and as a result, any concentration must bring some extra benefit in order to bring welfare benefits. Okay. So this is the basic of merger control and the rationale for merger control, but this is only the start. Okay. Of course, the fact that you have market power also imply as a byproduct that a firm may engage in anti-competitive behavior in order to protect its market power. So, so foreclosing the market may be profitable for a monopoly, but it could be also profitable for a single firm in a duopoly, just because allowing entry in a duopoly will reduce the duopoly profit. Okay? So the temptation to enter into anti-competitive behavior is not restricted to monopoly. That should be also kept in mind. And finally, oligopoly, and this is specific to oligopoly, may lead to coordinated effect, restoring monopoly situations. Okay. Now, all these considerations are taken into account into a merger review. Okay. The extra benefit, the coordination risk, and the risk of anti-competitive behavior, usually from a static perspective. And there's been long debate with competition authority about how you should address dynamic issues in merger control. Okay. Now, of course, many of the benefits that a merger will bring are dynamic. So, when moving to a dynamic perspective, then things become less obvious. A key question is whether market power will result from merit. Merit may come from investment, innovation, better quality, effort, or not, or from some inherited position. Now, when firms compete in dynamic and innovative markets, investment in quality, investment in new products, cost reductions become the object of competition, as well as prices. So price matters, but not only price. And of course, high level of investment may bring low price tomorrow, for example. Now, to give you a very brief example that you're all familiar with, before that, let me say, in this context, the effect of competition may become ambiguous. And excessive competition may have negative effect. So if you think about access, okay, it is clear that if we were to allow access on an infrastructure at short-run marginal cost, we would undermine any incentive to invest. And actually, efficient access pricing rules incorporate a component for the return on innovation or the return on investment. So that's the idea of long-run incremental cost. Now, this being said, an unregulated monopoly, of course, will not invest enough. Typically, it will reduce trade and reduce sales. So in a dynamic perspective, the efficient level of concentration is intermediate. It's somewhat between competition, full competition, and monopoly. In economic terms, we say that we must trade off static and dynamic efficiencies. Now, there is a well-known analysis of Philippe Aghion, Richard Blundell, a couple of co-authors, which shows that in dynamic industries where innovation matters, some competition is good, but too much competition is bad. So you need to reach an efficient level. The reason is that, on one hand, competition is a driver of investment. Firms who face harsh competition, low margin today, will try to find a way to escape from that and to differentiate the product and to raise the value that they bring to consumers so as to increase the margin. And this is done through investment. Okay. On the other hand, in order to get investment, you must protect the return on investment. Okay. And protecting the return on investment may require some restriction of competition ex post. Okay. So these two effects play together. They are extremely difficult to balance. And it is a fine balance that regulators must find when discussing about optimal market structure. Why economics provides clarification of the issue, it's fair to say that economists do not provide operational guidance to where to put the cursor. 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 firms? We have no clue. Okay? You need deep market analysis, and usually even with deep market analysis, we'll have no clue. So what we can predict is that there will be strong disagreement on this issue, and we might see them today. And because we lack of objective measure. Okay, I need to speed up a bit. This brings me to another issue. I say that we must protect the return on investments. Now, protecting the return on investment in a regulated industry requires strong commitment by regulators. Of course, once you've made a promise and firms have invested, there is always a temptation, ex post, to restore efficiency, not to get the rent, just to restore efficiency because prices are too high, to impose a reduction in price. So you need to be committed not to expropriate the return on investment ex post, and this is very difficult for a bureaucrat. Typically, law can be changed, agreement can be renegotiated, there are political pressures. You may think about electricity price, for example. And no, so regulators should always keep in mind that they need to build credibility and maintain credibility. Now, I think that the European Commission has been very useful in helping regulators building credibility with this common framework for regulation. And that has played a major role in achieving stability and commitment by regulators. Okay, so this is to warn that any attempt to change a framework should be considered with caution, and one should be careful not to undermine the current credibility of regulators by at least making people believe that there is some opportunism and that regulation can be adjusted in a continuous way to change in market situations. Now, one way the regulatory framework provides commitments, and one of the main ways is by determining rules and conditions under which a regulator can intervene or not. That's, so they need to establish individual or joint SMP. So this will be discussed in the panel, and they need to do it in a manner consistent with the European competition policy. So while individual SMP is rather clear, establishing joint dominance is more complex. Okay, so I don't want to discuss here the pro and con of joint dominance, but I want to remind you some fact about where it comes from and what happened. So I see that there is Giulio on the panel and some representative of DG Comp, so they may contradict me. But it is interesting to think about what happens. The initial merger regulation was based only on the test of creation or strengthening of a dominant position. Now, the issue is that with this test, it's not possible to oppose a merger unless a resulting entity is dominant, and a single dominance. Okay. Now, mergers that US antitrust authority would just block for unilateral effect would go through in Europe because of the difference between the test used in the US and the test used in Europe. Okay. Typically unilateral effect. Now, the concept of dominance collective dominance was created to address this issue and to treat some case of mergers that would not fit under single dominance. Initially, it was not well defined. And then the jurisprudence evolved very fast toward an interpretation of collective dominance, so at tacit collusion. Okay. But this came through the case and the court. Now, there's been a debate. So the concept partly missed the target because it's extremely difficult to establish coordinated effect. And it does not allow to address unilateral effect. There's been a debate in 2000. We were involved in the debate in Toulouse. We had to write a report on coordinated effects that turned out to be a report on unilateral effect at the end. And following the Air Tour case, where the Commission realized that the concept of collective dominance was not leading what they wanted. And at the end, this debate resulted in 2004 with the adoption of the concept of significant impediment of effective competition, which encompass single and joint dominance and allow to incorporate unilateral effect. Now, since 2004, the concept of collective dominance has lost a lot of its importance in merger control. So it's still present. There are still analysis of coordinated effect. But if we look at the mergers over the recent years, they're all under unilateral effect. Now, you have to keep that in mind when you discuss that. This change is posterior to the Common Regulatory Framework, which was 2002, I remember. And there have been no consequence of this change in the competition policy as conducted by the European Commission and the regulatory framework. Okay, I need to stop now and give the floor to the speakers. So maybe I should join my seat now.